You guys, welcome to our coffee hangout. Um, Today, we're going to talk about how personality types predict marriage outcomes. So, this is important because a lot of times we have the wrong kind of mindset or way of going about our relationships, and we sometimes are hooked into having a certain outcome before we even know enough. So, let me give you the information. So, first of all, before we get into the idea of personality, um, there are a couple of different ways that people have discussions about being married. And I think not in any order, but um, there are two kinds of conversations about being married and trying to get to a better spot. The first person, I probably have less to really to help that person other than being able to bring out what the personality is or what the ideas are that they have the mindset. So for that first person, a lot of times it's more of about looking for a validation um, that things will go wrong or that there is a reason to leave. And they're trying to understand what's going on, but more so because there's a limit that they want to be able to acknowledge. And they don't really believe that their relationship can be salvaged. And mostly because, and this is not, for a judgment purpose, but it's mostly because that person is feeling so hurt that any faith or ambition about themselves and what they can do or their relationship or even with their partner or any kind of combination of those things, their faith is much lower than the hurt that they're feeling. And so in those cases when the hurt is a whole lot more visible, and hurt can look like a lot of different things. Hurt can be addictions to other things. It could be um, it could be that somebody there was a transgression in the relationship. Could be that a combination of those things. Like there's so many possibilities that can cause hurt. It could even have less to do with the relationship and more of what we've been through in our lives. And so for this person here, there's less conversation to be had because the idea is more about a validation for the hurt than it is about trying to get better or trying to get to a different spot. And so unfortunately, I don't have anything for that person other than to be able to look more at what you're really pursuing, right? Am I pursuing um, previous experiences and the challenges that I had before and trying to validate those? And am I running from the past more than anything, right? That's a different kind of mindset. And, if that's the case, I think that it just is a matter of you being able to figure out, what is it that I actually want. And so that kind of takes us into our second person. Our second person is actually looking for a way to bridge gaps and a way to be stronger in the relationship, a way to build a stronger relationship. And they're willing to do or deal with their own pain and soul so that they can have a different kind of outcome. And so instead of looking for ways that their partner is not, they're looking for ways just to be able to improve in general. And so that's a different kind of look, and it takes us on a different path and a different conversation. And without judgment, again, this person's um, faith and focus and ambition is a lot higher than the hurt that they're feeling in their relationship. It doesn't matter. The hurts can be the same. It's just that they're raising up their faith and focus on trying to do something different. And so there's two different people, and I know what the two conversations look like. I'd invite everybody to try the second view and look, just because there's more opportunity for even future relationships in that scenario. Okay, so once we get past that idea of, you know, who's having this conversation, it's the second person who's having the conversation that's really looking for something. Um, One of the things that hangs us up is that we think that our personality type predicts how our relationship will work, right? So that's a lot of times what stops us is we think, man, we're just not compatible, right? Like who I am as a person doesn't match who my partner is as a person, which is always interesting to me because at one point in time to get to marriage, there must have been a lot of things going on that were going well enough for us to feel like, man, this is my person, right? Um, and I know every situation is a little bit different, but overall, what it tells us is that there was a different experience at some other time. Okay, so what you need to understand about your personality is that it's a lot more flexible than what you think, right? And it's a lot more subject to change than what you think because our personality is based on our experiences and our tolerance for those experiences. And so out of that becomes our personality. And I know this is true because I've worked with people who, in the beginning of us working together, they um, take a personality test, and then towards um, the end, or maybe just later of working together, um, the personality adjustment had been made, and these are based on like the beliefs that we develop in treatment, the experiences that we have, and so all those things say that our personality is not necessarily set in stone. It might look similar, but once we start knowing different things and believing different things, having different experiences, everything changes. Okay. And so that's really important for us to know is that our personality is flexible. So that's not going to be the thing that's going to cause our relationship uh, ending point, right? So what's going to cause it is us being stuck on the idea that our personalities are different and there can't be a change from that. So what we need to know is that what's inside of us is our ability to connect and contribute to others. So that's the part that cannot change. So the part that cannot change is that we have this innate yearn towards connection and contribution as a partner in a relationship. And so the more that we deny those things, the more our personality challenges actually show up, and it causes strife in the relationship. Why would we deny connection and contribution? Well, it depends on what it looks like and what it's been for us, right? And so sometimes we don't realize that we're we're avoiding connection or limiting connection and contribution in our lives by accident, mostly because of our traumas, our fears of losing in those scenarios, our fears of being powerless. Different things are driving us besides the idea of connecting and contributing. What if we made those things first, right? So if we can start thinking differently about this, like my personality type is not going to be set in stone, so that can change. But what cannot change is my need to connect and contribute. And I need to build ways that make sure that I'm connecting and contributing to my relationship. So what would make your marriage resilient enough so that the outcomes are more predictable? Well, I think there's three things. Two of them have to do with you, and the third one we're going to talk about what the relationship would have to be able to focus on. So the first one is if you can make your focus at a point where you're serving your partner at a high level. What am I doing to serve my partner at a high level? And I know that for some people that might be a huge turnoff. Um, but if we're talking about building relationship, we look less at what the words have meant to us and more about where it's going to take us. So imagine being able to have a focus of serving our partner and thinking about like what would be the outcome of that, what would be amazing. And for a lot of us we think, well, I'm in an abusive relationship and I think somebody would take advantage of that. And I think that there is a lot of truth to somebody taking advantage to that when of that whenever they're hurt, but that cannot be your measuring stick. And so without measuring whether they are worthy or not, you have to think about how do I do serving in physically emotionally abusive relationships. We can't really have this kind of conversation the same way. And the reason we can't have this conversation is because your safety is the most important situation, right? In those conversations, when we're talking about building a relationship, we're not talking about building a relationship in abusive scenarios, okay? Because there's not, that needs to get fixed before you have this kind of conversation. All right. So any other circumstances, we're talking about service, and service actually will get service, and just like love gets love, right? So Without measuring whether or not they're worthy. We want to try to serve our partners at a high level. The second thing that you can do as an individual is raise your individual ability to trust yourself and deal with the hardest outcomes possible. So it's difficult a lot of times because people think that trust has to do with what their partner is doing. Trust doesn't have to do with what your partner is doing. Trust has to do with whether you believe that you can deal with hard outcomes or not. And the more that you can build that ability to say, I trust myself to deal with hard outcomes, and at the same time, I'm going to keep the faith that my relationship way of interacting and building is going to be beneficial to me and my partner. If you can build on that as much as possible, you're going to be in a good spot. All right. And then the third thing to help your marriage resiliency is for you to be able to focus on building a safe place and culture inside of your relationship. And so a lot of times it's not safe to have hard conversations in your relationship. Whatever dynamics you guys have created, it's not a one that says, hey, we should go to each other and have a conversation together. Right. So instead, we need to be able to foster an environment that says, look, we're going to be close. We're going to grow in this relationship. We're going to develop connections spiritually, financially, and intimately, and in intimacy, so that we can have more in our relationship. All of that starts, though, with each individual being willing to do the inner work that means that we can have that kind of focus. If you go to trying to have that focus in your relationship and you're not willing to go back to the individual um, soul work that's needed, then you're going to have a challenging time building a relationship that is going to be resilient. So, in all, when we talk about the idea of personality, your personality is not stuck in stone. So your personality is actually flexible, and you'll see that happening as you start to develop those ideas of being able to focus and bring an ability of trust and faith into your relationship, and create the environment that your relationship needs. You'll watch your personality actually develop into something else that's more conducive to being in relationship. All right, you guys, it was good being able to meet with you. I hope you enjoy your day, and we'll talk to you soon.